Hello, hello, hello. Ooh, some technical difficulties just then. As Mercury's still in retrograde. Everything is in retrograde, isn't it? Just going to put my mic a little bit closer. Hopefully you can hear me well. Never really sure with this mic these days. Okay. Interesting. So, okie doke. Hello, everybody. This is a live or weekly live here in the Creative Genius Life Coaching Group with me, our weekly live for today. If you are here, please say hello, say hi in the comments, let me know if the sound is okay. All sorts of technical stuff today. I had to start over, so hopefully you're still here if you were here a moment ago. So I'm really excited about this live today because we're going to be looking at value, what we mean when we say we want to live a life with value. We want to live by our values as a guiding force. We want to be really feeling a sense of and appreciating what it means to feel our life is valuable, that we are valuable. And this isn't something that sadly we've ever been shown or taught about or guided through when we were young. Instead, we were told to learn trigonometry and the history of dead kings and other such interesting subjects. Maybe they were interesting in your school. They certainly weren't taught in an interesting way in my school. So there you go. So if you're listening to this on the replay, wherever that might be, please give us a hashtag replay or do say hello. That's really helpful for me to know who of you is receiving this. And also do comment on anything that is thought-provoking for you, any questions that you might have, any realizations, because as always, my intention with these lives is to be able to offer something of value to you yourself as you are navigating and weaving your own creative life in whatever way that is, whether you are a proficient and established and prolific artist, whether you are a creative entrepreneur, whether you're just beginning to take those tentative steps out into living your creative life, or whether you're simply a human being who just enjoys anything to do with creativity, to do with this sense of living with and as desire and eros, all the things that if you're here in this group that you know that I love to share. So let's get straight to it. What does it mean, this word value? Well, to be fair, it is a huge topic, and this isn't going to be a really huge live this evening. It's simply a taster for you to go and explore the threads that just wrap themselves around your little finger from time to time. But the big question I really want you to just begin to have a sense of is what would you say you value in your life right now? What do you value? Now, some of you that have done the alignment keys earlier this year, one of the foundation programs, we looked at this a hell of a lot. We worked with this a hell of a lot because it's really interesting to go, oh, I value kindness. I so value kindness. And we're just going around being an absolute bitch. We're gossiping everywhere. We're trolling people's comments. We're cruel to ourselves. We're cruel to our partner. So actually, we might think or like to think that we value kindness. But at the end of the day, actually what we're really valuing is cruelty. That's quite a strong one, but it's also quite a true one as well. Let's be honest. Most of us would be like, "Oh, more peace and light and love," and then we're just passive aggressiveness and fuck you and all of these things. Because we are complete and whole and extraordinary human beings that have all these flavors like a massive mirrored disco ball. That's what I feel that we are like. So, what do you truly value in your life? It's an interesting question. It can make us just pause. And we are at a season, we're at a time of pausing as we shift into the season of autumn. We start to slow down. This is a reflective time. We still have about fucking million planets in retrograde. It is a time to just really get a sense of where am I right now? Where am I going? And how do I ascertain if that's the right direction for me? All the different choices and decisions that we all get to make every single day. We live in a time where maybe this is the first time ever in history where we have so many possibilities and choices for what to pursue, what to do, where to go, so on and so on. In a way, that's incredibly liberating, but in another way, what helps us to make the right choice? And looking at what it is that we value can help us to do so that we can start to live aligned with our values. They act like an inner compass, a guide that's very strong in us, that would direct us, very intentional living. And then we also know when our compass has slightly gone a few degrees this way or that way, because wherever we're going, we just have this sense, we get this feeling, we don't feel right. The body tells us, our instincts tell us that this isn't quite right for us, or maybe we get poorly. Maybe we get physically poorly, maybe emotionally, mentally. All of these can be signs that we are not living a life that is aligned with what we really, truly, and deeply value. So, good question. And this is particularly so if one of those things is creativity, is living a life aligned with creativity, is freedom, valuing freedom above all, is this sense of meaning, creating meaning, is integrity, is expression. Many of us that are in this group are artists or are very aligned with creativity in some way, maybe to do with what our business is, or just the way we go about living, the kind of conversations we have, the people we hang around with, even the way we we receive the world and perceive the world. So many of us have that creative, often very curious, often very responsive, often wanting to understand more deeply. It's very much part of having a creative mind, how everything works. We like to question things. We like to find our own sense of meaning. So, what is it that you truly value? And if it is, you value creativity, you value your expression, you value your voice, you value being of service in this particular way, the next question to ask yourself is, but am I living that value? Am I living in alignment with that value? Am I serving that value? Am I acting in ways that show that this value is what is the essence, what is feeding? Am I speaking and saying the things that echo the value, as if I'm speaking from the voice of this value that is running through me? How am I making my life? How am I creating my life? How am I loving? One of the ways we can look at this is via relationships. Primarily the relationship with ourselves first and foremost, but then every single thing in our lives, we are always in relationship to something. is this value that I say is important to me, can I feel that? Is that a part of the relationships that I have in all these different areas, or is it missing? And maybe it's something that you would really like to, but you don't actually know how to do that. How do I live in alignment with that particular value? I don't know how to get there. Or I'm afraid to live in alignment with this value because that might mean that my whole life might change. It's scary. It feels very unknown. What if I disappoint other people? What if I let somebody down? It's not been this way for so long, so it's going to rock the status quo. What if they don't like me anymore? If I go, actually, I'm going to live more in alignment with this value. It feels right. What if I lose people? There's a lot of risk we can find if we've been really living offline. We might have been dreaming about this life that is driven, is fueled by what we really, really value, what's really, truly, soulfully burns through us, aches within us of how we would like to live. And yet, for whatever reason, we are not. So there's a disparity here. And very gently and with great kindness, it's always important to have this kind curiosity when we're looking at these reflections. We might notice where this conflict is playing out in us, the conflict for this life we desire that is composed of all of the values that is right. It just feels right for our soul, for who we are. Just right. We know it. It's strong, it's solid. And the way that we are actually living, what we're actually valuing. And as artists, one of the big things for many of us is, do we value our creativity and the freedom and that expression and our voice enough? Or are we valuing safety and the security and having kind of material life and chasing after something and what society says we should be living, and the voices of fear? There could be this conflict that is moving in and through us. Excuse me. How does that sound? Is that familiar? Maybe you know that you've needed to make changes for years. You know what that is, or there's an action that you need to be taking, something you need to start. You know. And yet, the time goes by, months, years, you can still see the same patterns, as if you just can't get your compass back to true north again. It's just good to notice. So do let me know if any of this is resonating for you. It might be just a tiny little bit, or it might be really strong, and that's okay. We're not looking to add anything, any judgment onto what we're discovering. It's just a really good time to just notice and pause and evaluate. Interesting, isn't it? Where we are, how we're living, what is vital to our soul, what are the desires that we know we want to give our energy to, our time to, our love to. We know these are things that make us happy, that turn us on, that light us up, where time disappears or in a state of flow. They make us feel full and satisfied. And yet we are not giving ourselves to those. And let's be honest, this is many of us, isn't it? This is many of us. This is incredibly common. So if this is you, don't panic or don't worry about this. This is just, it's just like this for many of us. But when we start to notice this, or when we're noticing that conflict, we can just really kind of go, Okay, can I look at this a little bit more? So looking at this a little bit more might be looking at breaking down what is our routine? What are the habits that make up, basically, the habits that we have make up like jigsaw pieces of our days? You know, how we look after ourselves, our physicality, how we're spending our time. What are we investing our time in? It's a currency. I was going to have a look what I had here. Yeah, okay. Yeah, kind of what is the best use of our life force? How are we using the fuel that we have available to us, our energy? Who are we surrounding ourselves with? What are we feeding ourselves with? Not just food, but also, you know, books or TV shows or movies, papers. When newsfeed, do we scroll a lot? What are we feeding ourselves? And it's by just looking at all of these habits, it might be that we just start to change a few, just very small. Maybe we stop watching the news. It's all fear-mongering fuckery anyway, isn't it? Maybe we choose to not eat that bar of chocolate every afternoon, you know, and we get some, I don't know, blueberries or some pineapple or some nuts. What if we used that 10 minutes in the morning where you're normally just scrolling before you set out to work after breakfast to open a notebook and journal, do a little bit of writing? What if we give a little bit of time somewhere, maybe out of our TV show rather than one more episode, to opening a book that we're interested in reading, something that aligns with what we value? So we can make these little choices. It's where we start to grow up. It's where we start to know that only we have the responsibility to live the life that we want to live, that we say is important to us. So, yeah, another way of thinking about this is, are the moments of your life, are the things that you engage in, are the actions, the activities, the habits, the conversations, and so on, are these things taking you towards the life that you desire to live, or away from that? Is this moving me towards who I say that I am, who I know that I am, or is it moving me away? Just something to take in, you know, just to hold that as a question, just allow it just to be there, to live in that question. It's a really good one. Really can really help us with that inner compass. You might want to take that on as a practice and see how that is. So one of the things as well as an artist and for creative people around this conflict that I just spoke of before, it is very much this, as artists, as creative people, as creative thinkers, as visionaries, we have access to a very magical realm. The realm of the imagination, a magical realm. And we like to access this. It's where we're inspired. Yeah, where the muse visits us. It's invisible, it's unseen, but we tap into it. We know, we trust, we bow to in devotion to this place. We understand its power. We understand how we allow this to move through us as force, and we use that. We manifest that into the life we are creating, to the way that we're showing up in the world. So we have that side, and a lot of us as artists, we love that. We're kind of safe in that. We're familiar. We can daydream in there. But we also have to have a balance with that, with the practical aspects of life. How do we get practical? How do I take those first steps? And I don't know how, or I'm scared, or, you know, I just feel like I just freeze. I haven't got a clue what to do here. How do we move that invisible, the unseen, into something that becomes visible and becomes formed, and something that becomes seen by ourselves, by others, is put out into the world? That makes a difference, that creates a ripple, a little bit like throwing a pebble into a lake. So we are living very much as artists in between these two realms, dancing between the two. There's always a dancing, and sometimes we're going to tip over one side and we're going to tip over the other side. Always a tightrope dance, living between these two realms. What do you think about that? Does that make sense for you? Do you get it? Do you know it? And sometimes we go too far into one for a while and it feels a bit unbalanced after a bit, and then we move too far into the other and maybe feel a bit dry and a bit uninspired, and moving from one to the other. This is about the dualities of life. We'll never get that steady pace. It's not possible. But we can allow what we value to infuse through both. So we don't lose our soul, our truth of our soul. So when we do this, and particularly at this time of the year, as we start to, as I say, head into the darker time, the autumn time, as we start to head towards the kind of end of the Celtic New Year, into the kind of witchy times, into Scorpio season, just into things falling away. We're heading into fall. It's a time where we really see the transformation. We have to allow things to fall. We have to allow things to end. We have to allow things to be let go of. We have to close down chapters. So there might be certain things that you can almost shake out a bit like a kind of, if you're doing a spring clean, it's like an autumn clean. Shake out some of the things that are no longer useful to you at this time of the year. What needs to be let go of? What needs to be transformed? What needs to be surrendered? What isn't serving what you value in your life? Yeah. And it's scary to do that, but then nature always shows us that everything has a cycle and everything has a season. So if we're willing, if we're brave enough, if we have the courage to let go of something in order to allow what we truly value to have more place in our life, because it just feels better, we feel alive, we feel more joyful, we feel more able to show up for the world, we feel more moved by life itself, then can't we trust this? Should we trust this? Can we trust this? I always love that Paulo Coelho quote from The Alchemist of, when we make a decision, we make a choice, the whole universe conspires to support us. And you might want to pause and go, let me look back at my life and see if that's true. Has there been times where maybe things have fallen away, or I have stepped away from something and something else has come? I always say that nature, life, abhors a vacuum. It will always fill it with something else. And the more we stay in alignment with what we value, the more we're really clear with that, the more we can really feel that desire, the more we will attract in and magnetize. Not in a fucking woo-woo way. I'm not woo-woo in the slightest. But we will be available to see those opportunities as they're presented to us. So it's a really, really, it's a strong practice. It's a muscle. So many of these things, for us to walk the walk, to walk our path, our muscles. So, yeah, let me have a look. Yeah, so I'm going to keep this one quite short today. And what I want to share with you is part of this conversation around value and values and all the different aspects of that is something I've been quite immersed in myself over the last month, certainly the last 2 or 3 weeks. I'm reassessing everything. Some of you know, who maybe receive my emails, things are changing at the Creative Genius headquarters. They're moving more into alignment with what I value. And as I say that, I've got goosebumps. So, 2 things to share. The first thing, and I'll post about it more, and I'll also put a link here, is at the moment I have quite a few ways that you can work with me one-to-one, private coaching sessions. A few just one-off ways to do so. I think there's 3 or 4 of those. There's also the packages, 3 months and 6 months, that most people actually take those packages. As from the equinox on 23rd, so where are we today? 13th, next week, end of next week, all of that is disappearing. I'm wanting to simplify. I say that I value simplicity. It's one of the things that as I've got older, maybe some of you recognize this, is becoming more and more and more important. It's pushing at me, simplicity. So I'm looking at all different ways of doing that in my life. And one of them is in going, okay, I don't want to have all those ways. I'm just going to have one way you can work with me one-on-one. And it's going to be a package. And that's going to be announced on the 23rd and be up there. So until now and the 23rd, so that's 10 days, if you want to have an opportunity to work with me, you've been curious, you're not sure if you want a big commitment yet, go and have a look and come and book a session just to have a one-off session with me. There's something there. If there's, you want to get clearer about this value thing I'm talking about and how to take that first step. You have a particular question that you want to work through. You're feeling confused about things. You just want some accountability or support in some aspect of your creative process. You're stuck in a limiting belief and so on. So come and book one of those sessions while they're still available. There's also the 3-month and the 6-month packages are going to be up there until the 23rd at the current price. Again, after that time, they're changing and the price will increase. So this is your window opportunity, if you've been thinking about it for a while, is to get in there and book a session with me. Once you book, if you book it before the 23rd, you can take the session anytime before the end of the year. So you don't have to have the session in the next week, just so you're aware of that. But the second thing that feels really, really huge for me to share, because by voicing this, I'm giving an accountability. And I'm doing it in my group, in the professional place where I am the one holding a particular position. Part of what I value is writing. It's my writing voice. The creative process of writing. Oh, I'm getting kind of moved. It's something that I've been saying for years and years that I value. And yes, I write. But I'm going to acknowledge here that I've given myself scraps of my writing time. It's not the thing I've put most value in. Other things have been the things that I've given more of my time and energy. Maybe valuing something else. This is really moving me. So, this is what I am stepping up into. This is what I'm going to give more space to. I've started. It's a little clumsy. I have to. I'm 50 years old. I'm at that point now. There's no more excuses. I know I'll fumble and stumble because that's how it is, but I want to announce this here. So over the next few days, I'm getting all flushed as well. I'm going to be sharing pieces of writing, but particularly little snippets. And I'm going to be hosting writings all around the stuff that I love. More of my voice, more of the edgy places. I'm going to be hosting on Substack. So any of you that are interested in reading my writings, you're very welcome to come and find me over there. That is what I value. I would love to know, my darlings, what you value. And if there's any particular actions, any small, tiny, could be little micro actions, that you can just shift that compass towards those because it's important to you. You don't have to know how or why. Part of, for me, valuing writing is trusting I don't have to hustle so much. Trusting that I can just back off a little bit into simplicity and know that what I have to offer and what I put out is valuable because I know it is. I can just take my attention away a little bit and go, this is what turns me on. This is what makes me feel alive. This is what I'm diving into. I'm going to live deeper in all the stuff that I talk about. All of this might be a little bit, I don't know, TMI, as they say, as the kids say. I don't care. I don't care. So I'm giving this a voice. So thank you so much. Thank you for listening. If you're still here, I'm sending so much love. And as always, anyone you know who you think would get something out from this, invite them to the group or let me know. I'll invite them. One-to-ones, I'm going to put the link in the comments now for you to book that session with me before things change drastically, because they will, and that's exciting and precarious and takes a lot of trust in many ways. I'm still here, by the way. I'm not going to be disappearing, but things are going to be changing around here. I'm going to be stepping a hell of a lot more into really what it is I want to be sharing. So, my darlings, be well. Let me know how any thoughts from this, any responses at all. Deeply, deeply appreciated. And I will see you next week. I have something very, very exciting to share next week. So I really hope you'll be able to make the live next Wednesday evening. Mark it in your diaries. Okay, my loves, for now.